What I wanted to talk to you guys today about is how to find the job that's right for you from the start. So at College Recruiter, we believe that every student and recent grad deserves a great career. One of the ways to get that is that you come out of school and you actually are able to get a job in your major, in your career field, and hopefully a good one where you can start to learn and build on your career in the future. And that doesn't always happen right now for college grads. So I just want to encourage everybody to take the time to do that. Okay, go. So what I wanted to discuss today, and I think Keaton said we'll take questions as you go. So if you guys have questions as I start talking, Keaton, feel free to interrupt me and we'll get some answers to the things. But basically what I wanted to cover with you guys today was how to apply on job search sites like College Recruiter, what's important about your resume, interviewing, networking, salary negotiation, which might sound funny to some young people that haven't had their first full-time job, but I think it's important from the start, and things to do now, even if you're a freshman or sophomore, and for sure some things to do now if you're a junior and senior. So, and then we'll have time for questions at the end as well. So with that, let's do. So I don't know if everybody's aware, but when you post a job on a job search site, what's usually happening is that your application is going into something called an applicant tracking system. There are many large companies that have this software that large employers buy. They purchase and they use it. Companies like, they're called Taleo or iSIMS. There's a few of them, Bullhorn, Brass Ring. You may see it in the URL sometimes when you're going to an employer career site. What happens with these ATSs is they're basically computer programs, and they were designed more for internal use. So they were designed better for the recruiter than they definitely were for the candidate. They're not really designed very well for an external candidate of the company. And so what happens is that sometimes your resume goes into Never Never Land, big black hole, and you don't know and don't hear anything. Another thing that might happen is it doesn't really go into a hole, but because of the way that recruiters filter, because sometimes for one job posting, they might get, 1,000 applications. If they get 1,000 applications, they're going to have to use search criteria to try and find the best resumes that they've gotten, applications that they've gotten. So they use filters, and those filters tend to be keyword searches and things like that. So that's something else important. And we'll go through a little bit of some of the to-dos or not to-dos about your resume. And the last point about that I wanted to make was ghosting. It's like the huge word right now in the industry. And part of the reason is that some large employers that have really good talent acquisition or recruiters, they're being honest, and they know that that's happening, and they're trying to figure out and work with their organizations not to let that happen. So candidates, again, go in this black hole and then they never hear back. The other point to make about that, though, is you never want to be the candidate that does that. It's just not a good idea. So sometimes that happens that candidates ghost employers as well. They make appointments for interviews and they don't show up, and they never email, things like that. And it's not good on either side. So just a word of caution. If you decide to have an interview, make sure you're ready for it. And if you get sick or something, just be professional about it and let them know, and then they can reschedule. What should you do to get your resumes through the applicant tracking systems? Basically, don't get creative, don't get fancy. Less formatting is better. Use a normal font, something everybody uses, not some cool thing that you think will make you stick out, but really it's just going into a computer program that's reading it. And also make sure that you keep track of what jobs you're applying. Oh, one other thing about getting through the search engines, the ATS, what you do want to do is tailor your resume as much as possible to the job that you're applying for. And what I mean by tailor it is just look at the keywords or the language in the job description and try to mimic that language where you can about the skills you have. Because again, you go back to those filters and those recruiters are going to keyword search to find, hopefully, your resume. So the closer you have it to what they say they're looking for, word by word, the better off you are. And then lastly, when you start your job search, be thoughtful, be planful, keep track of it, maybe an Excel spreadsheet, something like that. It doesn't have to be fancy, but just keep track of where you applied, what date you applied, have you heard back? If you haven't heard back, so some of the milestones along the way of trying to land that job. So when you start to look at your resume, and the best thing to do is first look at what's your best strength, what's your biggest strength. And a lot of resumes, what's good to start at the top is some kind of objective statement. And in that, it's really a good idea to ensure that you're putting in your best strength, what really stands out for you, and what you want, what kind of job you're looking for. That's one point. And then another thing to remember is that when you're listing what you've done, make sure you think about what you have experience to do. So don't say things like, I've learned this, or I worked on this project. Turn that into an action, like, I created this, and so I have the ability to do X. That way you're making it active. You're showing the company how you can help them. That's what you really always need to keep in mind. How can you help them? And be specific about what you do. So if you know that like some app you developed or code you wrote increased views or increased downloads of the app by tenfold because of what you did to optimize it, use that 10 times, or use a number or percentage. Make it as specific as you can. And if it's not measurable, at least be specific about what it was. Don't say, I developed an app, but describe the app very clearly. I mean, that's a basic example, but you'll find if you think that way, you might see that you're doing something a little too generically, and it would be helpful to be more specific. When it comes to interviewing, the most important thing is to be prepared. So what does it mean to be prepared for an interview? A couple things. First of all, I think that you need to research the company. You need to know who you're interviewing with. Look up the person on LinkedIn. Understand who you're going to talk to. Understand the company you're applying to and where you might fit into that company's mission or values. And then bigger than that is that preparation will help you feel more confident when you get into that interview. One of the things that's really hard is being confident. To me, it's a two-way street. When you interview, everybody's looking for the right fit. The employer is looking for someone who can do the job they're hiring for. And you as a candidate, you're looking for a job that will fit your needs and your skill sets and your values and your interests. And that's really important. And so really knowing, being confident in what you think you're good at and what you want is really helpful to selling yourself and being comfortable in that interview. And really be yourself. And that's really easy for me to say. Not only have I had a lot of experience, but I am a very extroverted, easygoing person, and don't get embarrassed very easily, although I do turn red. But it's easier said than done. But the more that you're a little introspective and realize what you're worried about and try to allay those fears and things like that. Right now in our society, it must be hitting everybody. It's with the pandemic, it's allowed for a lot of isolation, and it's changed the way we talk to each other through Zoom instead of making personal connections. And a lot of those things have made it really hard for lots of people to feel confident and positive about their future. So just getting in a good place before you sit down in an interview is helpful. And if you need help from someone that's a mentor or someone older, ask someone in the field, somebody a friend, but have some authentic conversations around what you're worried about, because I think that will just make you be more prepared and more comfortable when you're interviewing. And lastly, the key is also to be prepared with some good questions, some questions that make the recruiter understand that you're interested in the job and that you also have thought through what it means to work there. It can be questions about benefits. It can be questions about work responsibilities. They're going to cover things in the interview. So at the end, you hopefully will say, oh, well, you've answered a couple of my questions, but I do have this one, so that if you come up with a few, that you'll still have something that will help them see how you're thinking. Now, networking. This is to me, this is the most important thing. This is the most powerful way to get a job. And the reason I say that is because it's not really as extreme as people say. It's not what you know, it's who you know. That's a little bit, to me, that's a little bit, I don't know, I kind of go, that's not cool. But it is, there is nothing wrong with learning and leveraging from people that you know, or people that are in the field you want to be in. So one of the things to know is that when people have a lot of experience in their career and they've enjoyed what they've been doing, they almost always want to pay it forward. They love to talk about it because they love what happened and they love to share that. And they also really do feel fortunate a lot of times in what they've done, or have made some mistakes that they don't want other people to have to make. And they're willing to share that knowledge and information. So use all the networks that are available to you. So think of your parents, think of your parents' friends, think of your friends' parents, which may not be the same thing. Think of your professors, anybody you've come in contact. I mean, Keaton just talked about a great opportunity to be talking to the advisor of the computer science club, as well as you'd be doing something that's concrete for credit. So you may be doing something that interacts on a project with a company. So if you are talking to someone who's in a job, definitely talk to them. And what I found the best way to do that, and it's easier with some people than others, right? It depends how much you know them. But one thing that's really easy to do is to do informational interviews. So when you contact someone, you can say, hey, depending on what everything's like with COVID, I used to say, hey, can I buy you a cup of coffee? And because I'm thinking of my career options and I'm not really sure which direction to head. And I think I might want to do the kind of job you do. Would you be willing to talk to me about it? I'll buy you a cup of coffee. And that really, sometimes you get a job that way. That's how extreme it can be, because somebody likes you, you're having this cool conversation about what you worked on and what you do. And they're like, I know Joe over here or Susan over here, and they actually need someone in their department. And let me talk to them because it sounds like you might be a good fit. And you'd be surprised, it happens. And then the other point is job shadowing. So I have an example today. I have a son who's 24, graduated undergrad, and has decided to go to physician's assistant school, PA school. And yeah, pretty cool. I'm excited for him, but it's a lot of work. And so he needs to first get in a whole bunch of hours of kind of care, medical care kind of work. And so he had to switch his job. And then today he actually shadowed a PA that is in an orthopedic clinic and functions. He's worked for the same doctor for orthopedic surgeon for like 30 years. So he gets to do everything himself. So he pretty much functions as a doctor, even though he's a PA. And so my son got to shadow him yesterday and said it was just amazing. So those are some ways to really kind of also figure out what you want to do, because you don't always know. Just because you like your major doesn't mean you know what kind of job you want. So, and let's move on, just so I make sure we have a lot of time for questions. Salary negotiations. So the reason I said this is important is because 42% of people that are early in their career, 0 to 2 years of experience, tend to get underpaid. And the reason that that's so hard and I don't like it is that when you start at a salary, it's really hard to take big jumps in pay. So if you start underpaid, it's a lot harder to get paid market value after that than it is if you start right. So one of the things to do as far as salary negotiations goes is to research a company. There's sites out there now like Glassdoor, that pay scale. There's different salary sites that talk about, what common pay is for certain job titles in certain industries. And so you can look at what does a web developer make when, and you can put in the criteria like, 0 work experience or 1 year of work experience. And right now some of it is kind of by location, which I don't think it should be, but it is. Like if you go to Silicon Valley, it's going to cost, they're going to probably pay you more because they say the cost of living in California is higher than, maybe here in Minnesota where I am. So do your research and kind of know that range, and then another key thing with negotiations that's pretty basic is you don't want to really be the one to go first. So it's been pretty common that recruiters will say, well, what do you make now? If you happen to have like a job right now in your field, or they'll say, what do you need to make? Or what do you want to make? Or something like that. And I would say, you don't say, oh, I'm not going first, but you say something to the effect of, well, I'm open to this sort of range. I've done my research and it looks like, I've looked into this and it seems like beginning salaries in my field are in this range. And then let the conversation flow from there. The other point I'd like to make that has to do with both applying for jobs and salary negotiation is that, and this is more a shout out to the young women in the audience. Women tend to and this is really kind of cultural in general from our society, but women tend to think that they need to have every requirement on that list in a job description to apply. And basically there's research that's been done that said men will apply if they have half the requirements, but many women won't apply unless they have, 8 of the 10 or 80% of the requirements, or even 100% of the requirements. And I would just encourage women out there and all you young men out there to encourage your women friends that go for it. You don't need every single requirement. People who write those requirements are just humans too. And sometimes they get lazy at their job, or they put more on there than really needs to happen. If you're the right person, they're going to go, oh, we can train you to do that other thing, so keep that in mind. And then the other thing for women is this salary negotiation piece. It feels more uncomfortable in general. And this is not every woman or every man, but in general, it feels more uncomfortable for a woman to take a stand on salary and pay. And it really shouldn't have to be that way. So for the women out there, step out of your comfort zone. Just know it's better to do it. You're worth it. You need to advocate for yourself. It's true in a lot of things in life, and it's definitely true in getting a job. So, so don't be afraid of that. And again, look to a mentor, a parent, a friend of the family, someone that maybe is in a business job, in a job that might be similar to yours, or just even in, if you're looking for a job in the business world, that it's a business person, or if you want to go nonprofit, find somebody in nonprofit that might have a better idea, that kind of thing. And some of these things I've talked about along the way, but basically, really the whole idea of self-reflection and knowing what you want is super important. I've seen it a lot, especially recently. I have 3 kids. They're all in their 20s. They all went through school, and I met all their friends, and I've helped a lot of their friends. And it is really hard to know what you want to do. And you have a lot of options. Your guys' major happens to be a little bit more, a little bit more defined. When people want to be in computer science and they start doing things, they kind of know what they want. So hopefully that's true. But, with IT, there's so many options. You just saw those 4 big options just for those projects for you guys to do in your society. I don't know if the computer science degree at your school also deals with hardware and software. Maybe hardware is under engineering, but there's just so much out there in the world of technology. And also know that, also know that whatever happens, that you may think you have a clear path, it'll probably change, and that's okay. Because that's part of life. And actually sometimes it's actually a lot more fortuitous, because you go in your first job and then you realize that, well, I kind of like it, but this is really exciting. And, and things shift as you go. So just know that. I think they say the statistic is something like 7 careers in your life. Whole career changes, which may or may not happen for IT professionals, but, that's a lot of change. So start networking now, even if it's just the informational interviews around, hey, I'm studying this and I don't really know what I can do with it. You're in this field, can you help me, kind of thing. And ask your professors and advisors now, especially if you're juniors and seniors, for recommendations. Or if you're freshman and sophomore, keep in mind that your professors and advisors can end up giving you recommendations, whether it's for summer internships or jobs out of college. And so, keep that in mind, form those relationships. And they want to be able to do that if you're an engaged student. And like what you're doing. They want to see young people get the jobs that they're looking for. So, and with that, we can do Q&A. I also wanted to tell you, feel free to email me. This is my email. This is my LinkedIn profile. Connect with me on LinkedIn. One of the things you can do on LinkedIn is if you see that I'm connected to somebody you're looking at, you can reach out to me and say, hey, can you make an introduction? I see you're connected to this person. It's a really powerful way to kind of get in the door. So go out there and connect with me on LinkedIn. And the information that I shared with you is just a small part of this great guide we have out on our website that goes through each of those categories and more in a lot of detail. So this link right here leads you to a page where it gives you a lot of different articles to read about interviewing, networking, all that stuff. So that's it.
I had one question.
So
sorry about that.
Yeah.
I know, I mean, I've talked to plenty of my friends and we're all starting to, get into the job market. And I know some people tend to write like one specific resume and then just mass send it out to whoever they can find. I've always felt I didn't think that was the most efficient way. What's your opinion on something like that?
Yeah, don't do that. I think that's terrible. And the reason it's terrible is, first of all, it's not good for you, because when you're just mass putting it out, you haven't really thought about what kind of position you really want, unless you're finding the exact job title like at a million places. But what's really more important is to take the time to tailor your resume and apply to jobs you really think might be a good fit. It saves you time in the long run, and you're more likely actually to get a job by doing things that way, and putting your effort into it like you would a school project. The other thing is, I don't know, you guys have probably seen this, but there's on Indeed now, they have, and they're not the only job board that does this, but they have like a one-click apply. So basically you put your resume out at Indeed, and when you search on jobs, if you get a big search list and here's like 10 jobs that kind of fit your search, you can go apply, 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 apply. Okay. Well, I can tell you, hiring people at my company, that I have also put things on Indeed. Even though mostly I put them on my site, and we have a network of sites, and I don't really need to, but early on I wanted to try it, and I did. And one of the things that led me to, I was interviewing for salespeople, so a bit different than IT, but one of the things that led me to do was, this is how I planned my interviews. First interview, I like your resume, please select a time for a meeting. It'll be a 5-minute meeting, and by phone. And so my 5-minute meeting was to make sure the candidate actually picked a time because they cared about the job. They actually showed up. But then even past that, I had one question. It was kind of a 2-part question. What would you like to know about College Recruiter, and what would you not like to know about the position that you're applying for? And I can tell you that it quickly weeded out people, because there were people who had taken the time to understand what my business was and understand what kind of company they were applying to. And they had really good questions. And they looked at the posting and they read it and they realized what most of it meant, but they had questions about some particular part of the job. And some people kind of literally went, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay, thank you. And that saved me a ton of time, because before that, I hadn't done that. And I think that just goes to show the thing about, just posting everywhere. You can't possibly keep track of all those, and you can't possibly ask yourself to prepare a half hour before each one of those. if you start getting these interviews from all those apps going out. So I think being planful and thoughtful, and doing it more that right way is very important.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's a really good question.
All right, and then I think Ricky, you had a question that you probably wanted answered.
Yeah, I can actually just ask Ms. Rothberg yourself. Yeah, so I was just wondering, when you were talking about like the ATS scanners that a bunch of companies use. I know that there are these ATS like online scanners that you can kind of put your resume through, put the job description in, and it kind of spits you out this like score, and it kind of tells you like, oh, what you need to improve on. So what are your opinions on using that tool in general, and how helpful is it?
So it's all going to depend on the tool. One thing I can tell you is in the employment, in the tech, they call it HR tech, in the human resource technology industry. There's a lot of new tech coming, a lot of startups. There's a lot of investment because it's so important, and some of it is very broken. And the complexities of why it's broken are really large. So it's kind of fun. I've been in the industry a long time, and it's confirming when people come in and they think they're going to change it because it's so easy, and then they find out it's not. And that's what some of those tools might be like. They might say they work, but they don't yet. But some could be good. So if you have a specific one that you've tried to use, or that you want to use, shoot it to me and I'll take a look. Because I may know the company. I don't know the names offhand, but I may know the company or know the people, or some of the people in it, to maybe know if I think it would be a good choice. But, just like any good testing in computer programming, you can test out a few things too. I don't know if it costs money, and if it's expensive, then you don't want to do it so quickly. But, doing a little bit of A/B testing and seeing, they say it works on, part of the problem is these search engines, these applicant tracking systems, because they're all different. So they may say, it works on all applicant. If it says it works on all applicant tracking systems, run away. If it says it works on these 10, okay, then they've probably vetted out the 10 and know the differences and can make something. I think actually one of the best things is still trying to do sort of that tailored resume to the job description, with the verbiage and things like that, because that's really, it's still all textual. It's still all keyword searching. So those programs are trying to help you do that, but does it allow you to put in like the actual job description and then it kicks out the resume, or is it only telling you it's kicking out the resume to make it better for ATS?
Yeah, no. So, I was kind of looking into more about ATS. So I did, try to use one of their programs, and basically you put in your resume, and then you also put in the job description, and then basically like highlights parts that it needs to work on. So like, like in terms of like keywords, to tell you like, oh, there's certain keywords that are on the description that, aren't on your resume. Yeah,
no, then I think that's a great use of technology. It just helps you get to the place faster, but you're still doing basically what we're talking about here. So yeah, if that helps, and you think the output's good, seems reasonable, then go for it.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, and then Kayla, one of our board members, actually asked, said they seen this question in another chat, but should interns negotiate their salary if they have no experience, since they don't have much to prove their work is worth it?
So for internships, I think it's tougher than for your first job out of school. But what I would say is, an easy example is interns should be paid for their work. And so if somebody offers you an unpaid internship, most of the time, I wouldn't want to do it. I would try to look for a paid internship. It's, you know, there are now some new sites out there that help create small project work for people in school and for employers to kind of see what you're working on and how you do it. It's almost more like an assessment so that the employers can see your quality of work. And some of those things are not paid, but they're also not a continuous job. It's more a small project. And hopefully the good ones give you feedback on your project as well and what that employer might think. So some of those might be good to search out. But if you're really trying to look for a summer internship that lasts all summer, then it's really beneficial to ask what the pay is, not be afraid to. We recommend to all our employers to post the salary, but they don't always do that. So I would say not really tough negotiations, because as an intern, you're not going to have much to negotiate, but you do also have some strengths and skills that you've learned if you've had a number of other jobs while you're going to school, even if they're not in your field. So if you were I'll give you an example. I just hired someone pretty young who I would have never even looked at his resume twice, because he worked at a restaurant. And like I said, he was young, he was a server, and he was a team lead. Okay, that was good. But what I was looking for, I got resumes with those kinds of experiences already. But he reached out almost immediately on LinkedIn to both me and my husband and business partner, and said, I'm really interested in this job. He sent me an email that basically said, I know I don't have a lot of the qualifications you say you're looking for, but I think I can do this job, and I hope you'll at least talk to me. And I interviewed him, and he was right. And we talked about, he tutored young people in math. He had skills, and then he became this leader in the restaurant. So there were signs that he would have what a lot of people call soft skills. Soft skills like, can you work in a team? Can you, do you use your critical thinking skills? Do you have them, and do you use them in your everyday job and in your everyday life? Can you think outside the box? Those sorts of soft skills. Can you communicate in writing? Can you communicate on the phone? Because those are things that have to happen to make you successful, no matter how good you are at coding. So yeah, I hope that answered it. I think I answered a little more than what Kayla asked, but
yeah, I think you definitely did. Yeah, I always thought it was interesting because, like, from my impression, like, I don't know, I thought even unpaid internship work would be okay because at least you're getting experience. But I mean, I guess, getting at least paid for it as well is like, that's like valuing your work, and you should do that. So
yeah, and I it is experience, and you're right, you can at least say it. So if it's the only thing, but I just would say work harder to find something that's paid, or it's such a stellar opportunity that, you Google, I don't know. I can't think of one that would be unpaid that would also be just an amazing, stellar opportunity.
yeah,
Most internships if they're good, are at least paid something. So
Definitely. So do any of our members have any other questions? I want to give them a chance. Feel free to ask in the chat, unmute your mic.
I had a quick question.
sure.
So I kind of know that you mentioned earlier about, the importance of tailoring your resume to the job description and the company that you want to apply and work at.
Mhm.
And I've had many friends and other people that I've talked to who always talk about like casting a wide net, and that they're the ones who like really just throw out a bunch of resumes and like just hope something sticks.
Mhm.
But would you recommend more on like quality over quantity, as like really focusing on maybe a select few of job positions and then really just kind of narrowing in with your resume instead of like casting this obscenely wide net to job positions?
Yep, I would absolutely do that. And I think Kyle asked kind of a similar question. I think it's important. I think it's like anything else that you do in your life. It's more about the quality you put into it, the effort and the quality you put into something to get what you want or to make something happen versus not. So what I feel like when people cast a wide net, they're spending an awful lot of time on throwing a bunch of applications into all these job boards like mine. But like I said, actually, I think the most important thing to finding a job is networking. And that's really time consuming and takes, personal energy. And it's very, what's the word? It's much more high quality because you have to think about who you want to ask, and you're asking for some help. And it's always good also when you ask for help to do a little give too. But that's why I even I'll buy you a cup of coffee and, have a conversation. But yeah, no, I think it's really important to concentrate more on quality. And if you can take some shortcuts like what Ricky was talking about with the system that here's the job description and here's my resume, and it spits out, here's how you can improve your resume for this specific job description, then all the more power to, getting that quality, well-written resume for that position quicker. But regardless, I think it's just like anything else. I always say finding a job is a job. And it's hard to think of it that way, but it's really, if you think of it that way, you're going to be much more successful because you're going to do it planfully. You're going to have an approach. You're going to, you're going to put your time and your effort into it. So yeah, the cast a wide net, just online, like, okay, two things. IT people tend to be introverts anyway. And the way our society has gone with all the texting, and it's more comfortable to text than it is to talk on the phone or whatever, and all that, you put those two things together, and that's not a good thing to keep going. So that's why many young people would prefer to just put a whole bunch of resumes out there on these sites and then hope they get an answer back. And that's just not the case. So throw that idea out the window that you're not going to have to really have good quality, sometimes hard conversations to start with people. Usually the conversations end up being a lot of fun and they end up being easy, but I know there's oftentimes like, oh, I don't want to make this phone call, or I don't want to reach out to this person and actually ask them to sit down and talk. It's hard. It's hard work, but I think that's how you're going to land the kind of job you want, for sure.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Tell your friends who are doing that too.
Will do.
Any other questions our members have? All right. Well, actually, I did want to ask a question about college recruiters specifically, because
Sure.
I just went onto the site and just kind of like looking at it. I wanted to know, like, because I've used, many like job searching sites, such as I used Indeed, as mentioned. I've used Handshake, which our school actually introduced us to. I think I even used a Snag a Job before, like one time. But what makes College Recruiter different from something like, let's say, Handshake, for example? What makes it like stand out and unique?
Sure. So a couple of things. Handshake is actually a career services site. So it runs the software that allows you to like schedule career fairs, sign up for career fairs, schedule interviews, those sorts of things, as well as has a component of a job board. It will not have all the same jobs as we have, because a couple of things. Handshake is quite expensive from the employer side if they really want all their jobs to be out there. And they may also only advertise their jobs to certain schools, because it also is kind of school-based. And I know that they also have a free product for employers, but when they post a job, they have to do it all manually if they're going to do it that way, so that they really don't get all their jobs out there unless they spend a lot of money. On our site, it's just much more open. So we're not affiliated with any school. And one of the things we've always said to our employers is that lots of candidates go to school, not necessarily where they want to end up living. And so, like me, I was going to the University of Michigan, working on my MBA, and I knew I wanted to move to either Chicago or Minneapolis. So for me to be pegged as, a candidate that's in Michigan, and some employers are better than that to peg it that way. But so on our site, it's open. On our site, we make it easier for employers to post a lot of their jobs. And the other big thing is that Handshake really focuses on students. And we actually focus on students and graduates. So the way our site works is we have a sophisticated filtering system on the front end that only allows 0 to 3 years of work experience jobs. So when you go look, you won't see a whole bunch of jobs, or you shouldn't anyway, if you do, that say, director of IT, or, VP of product development, because those will need, 5+, 10+ years of experience. And so we don't even have those on our site. So it already helps narrow the search. And then you can easily search in any location that you want for where you might want to end up after college. That was a really good question, though. Now that was Handshake, and you asked about something else. And then the 0 to 3 years of experience, and the fact that we do students to 3 years of experience, really is what differentiates us as well from things like ZipRecruiter and Indeed, which are much more general job sites. So they go across all experience levels and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because I just went on the site and I saw how it is. And, obviously, I assume that the mindset of College Recruiters, how are we going to tailor to like the students most likely? So yeah, that's a great explanation of it. And I'll definitely be using it. I encourage the rest of our members to definitely use it as well. That's the case. So yeah. Any other last minute questions before we head out? I know some people have class.
Yeah, people are jumping.
Yeah, so we might be actually ending the meeting. So I guess on that note.
The only other point I'll make really quick is that there's a ton of great information for job seekers out on the web, on our blog, on our articles portion of the site. So don't hesitate to go look at some of that stuff. And that's why that one link I gave you guys really links to a whole bunch of different articles that can help right now in your job search. Thanks for having me. This was awesome. I hope that I was of some help to people.
Oh yeah, definitely. And thank you for coming as well. I know this is something that's really good in general for like not just like, you know, any specific fields of CS, but like any one of our members can use all this knowledge. So I really appreciate that. Ricky, any other last things to say?
No, yeah, I just want to thank you again. Thank you, Faith, Mrs. Rothberg, for coming out. Just
Yeah, call me Faith
informing.
for sure.
Faith, okay, sure, yeah. Thank you for coming out. You know, just kind of informing the students. You know, helping us. You know, yeah, definitely really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and if you guys have any questions, any of you, just email me. I'm up for it. So.
Yeah,
sounds good.
for sure.
Thanks.
All right.
All right. Have a great one.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Yeah,
Have a good
you.
day.
Bye.
Yeah.